Yes, the Giannis Antetokounmpo and Alperen Sengun feud went too far, and the receipts prove it. The surface story is simple: a semi-final beatdown, some trash talk, a nationalist dig on Instagram, a hot-headed livestream clapback, then real-world threats that dragged family into it. But the fuller reality is about how a perfectly ordinary post-game jab metastasized into an international incident once pride, politics, and platform incentives poured gasoline on the fire. Tonight, we'll answer 3 things you're expecting. What exactly was said and when? Why did it escalate from sports talk to serious danger? And how did it finally get de-escalated? And what does it change for both stars going forward? I've pulled the tournament timeline, cross-checked pressers and social posts, mapped play-by-play from the semifinal, and reviewed official apologies and the joint statement to deliver a clean, receipt-backed breakdown. Let's set the moment. On September 12, 2025, Turkey blitzed Greece in the EuroBasket semifinal, flipping the script with tempo, length, and smart backhand rotations. Sengun did what he's been doing all year, facilitating out of the elbows, punishing switches, and trusting cutters. After the game, he gave a line that sounded like harmless, if pointed, basketball analysis. Giannis is an amazing player, but not a great passer in the context of their game plan. It's the kind of quote players drop every tournament. But then came the Instagram story that read less like tactics and more like national chest thumping. Within 48 hours, the narrative mutated from smart scheme to shot at Greece, and that shift mattered. Because right after Greece won the bronze, Giannis saw a Turkish flag spam in his live stream chat and fired back with an insult of his own. The fuse was lit, and everything after that was no longer about ball. Here's where the line was crossed. In the hours after those clips circulated, Giannis's wife, Mariah, posted that she'd received messages threatening their family. That's when this stopped being noise. You can call out a bad pass. You can mock a rotation. You can even talk wild on a live when emotions are cooking. But when the mob turns it into death threats, we've left sports. That escalation is the core of why this story matters. The audience moved from cheering to doxing, the ugliest page out of the modern fandom playbook. And remember, EuroBasket isn't a niche corner, it's a cauldron of national identity, history, and pride. The stakes don't feel like a Wednesday in January. They feel existential. So here's the plan. I'm going to walk you through 4 chapters. First, we rewind to the semifinal itself, what Turkey actually did to short-circuit Greece, and why Sengun's comment was more scouting report than slander. Second, we hit the turning point, the Instagram story tone, Giannis's livestream clapback, and the precise moment this left the court. Third, we go into the blowback mechanics, how algorithmic amplification, national headlines, and bad actors escalated a language jab into threats. Finally, we end with a joint statement and the lessons, how 2 players took ownership, what it teaches about leadership in the social era, and what happens the next time these 2 share a lane line with the world watching. Section 1. The basketball reality that sparked the words. Ask yourself, if a team walls off Giannis and makes his reads late, is it an insult to say he's not a great passer in that game plan, or a description of a successful scheme? In the semifinal, Turkey fronted early, brought nail help late, and baited cross-court skip passes that rarely arrived on time. Sengun's job wasn't to outdunk Giannis, it was to orchestrate a tempo his big rival couldn't comfortably control. Turkey's guards iced side PNR and lived with mid-paint crowds, so Giannis saw bodies instead of lanes. Sengun punished the other direction, dragging Greece's backline 2 steps too deep by flashing high and hitting cutters. The scoreline reflected it. Turkey rolled, and the box plus tape said their scouting was elite. Sengun's post-game comment, stripped of tone, reads like standard post-win candor. Respect for Giannis, framed by "We took away Plan A." Tactical, not personal. That matters because it shows where a basketball take ends and a national story begins. When opponents explain why they won, they point at the star they disrupted. It's the oldest script in the book. He's great, but we forced him into X. The media has run that quote template for decades. The difference now is the quote doesn't just sit in a gamer column. It is screenshot, subtitled, reframed, and sent through 100 language filters to audiences primed for offense. That reframing is where adversity becomes animus, and it set the table for everything that followed. The payout of this first chapter is simple: The original basketball message was scouting, not slander. The scoreboard made it sting, and the echo chamber made it loud. Section 2, from Instagram to live, when pride spoke louder than prudence. Here's the rehook. At what exact moment did a tactical comment become a national taunt? The inflection point was tone and timing. An Instagram story layered with national pride after a heated semifinal reads very differently in the other locker room than it does to your home crowd. And when that travels across languages, nuance evaporates. The same thing happened on the other side when Giannis opened his live and saw provocations in his chat. He responded, not with excess and OS, but with a sharp put-down that painted with a broad brush. He wasn't debating slips and tags. He was venting. Clips fly, translations sharpen the barbs, rivals retweet, and now it's bigger than two pros talking shop. Within hours, the noise spilled over to family. That's the gut punch, because it exposes how powerless players can feel when the mob takes over. In a tunnel or a press room, you can answer a jab. On a phone that won't stop buzzing with bile aimed at your kids, you can't box it out. And that's when the calculus changes from ignore them to shut this down now. The payout here. Both players crossed a line with tone, but the real leap, from rivalry to danger, came from weaponized audiences, not from the initial words. Section 3. How the internet turns heat into hate. Why did it explode so fast? Because this is exactly what the modern attention machine is built to do. Algorithms prioritize velocity and emotion. National rivalry. Check. Star versus star. Check. Visual proof in short clips. Check. And once you add translation accounts who thrive on the spiciest phrasing, the incentives all point in one direction. Escalate. It's not that editors woke up and chose chaos. It's that every structural force rewards the sharper headline. We made him pick up his dribble at the nail doesn't sell. He's not a great passer does. Giannis fires back does. Family threatened does. Tragically, more than anything. Each step adds reach. Each reach adds pressure. And pretty soon, neither player is speaking for themselves. They're reacting to a monster they didn't build but are now responsible for taming. Add in the weight of history. Greece and Turkey are neighbors with layered, sensitive context. Sports become a proxy arena because they're visible, safe to argue about, and constantly refreshed by new games. When the story shifted from tactics to identity, it stopped being about bounce passes and became about belonging. In that storm, even pure apologies get parsed for weakness. That's why the only workable lever is a joint de-escalation, unified language, no hedging, and a clear "this stops now." The payout? What felt personal was structural. To fix it, both men had to step above the structure and speak together. Section 4. The joint statement, the apologies, the reset. The move that mattered most wasn't a barbed quote, it was the joint statement. The language was clear, emotions ran hot, words missed the mark. Families must be off limits, respect first. Giannis apologized for his live comment. Sengun apologized for his post's tone and any offense to Greek fans. Both committed to shutting down the ugliness and centered the game again. That unity did two things. It took away the oxygen from bad faith actors who were farming the feud, and it modeled leadership for their fan bases. Importantly, neither backed off competitive pride. They didn't fake a friendship. They simply redrew the line, compete hard, talk ball, protect families. From a PR lens, that's textbook issue containment. Align messages, acknowledge harm, avoid defensive language, and give the public a phrase to repeat that replaces the inflammatory ones. From a locker room lens, it's stronger. It tells your teammates and your federation that you can be trusted when the whole continent is watching. And from a league lens, both the NBA and their national federations want exactly this outcome, because star safety and cross-border marketability are not just nice-to-haves, they're revenue pillars. The payout here, unity statements aren't fluff, they're a fence. And once the fence is up, the bad actors have less room to run. Section 5, what the film still says about both players. We've talked about words, now return to the court. The film gives a cleaner read on identity than any post. For Sengun, this run was confirmation of a skill-led ascent. Live dribble reads, patience in traffic, touch at every angle, and the composure to act as a pressure valve when pace tilted wild. The scheme that beat Greece was less about Giannis can't do X, and more about we can force him into Y and live with the results. That's mature basketball. For Giannis, the bronze game showed something vital: response. He didn't sulk. He attacked with purpose, hunted early rim pressure, and stabilized Greece when it mattered. If anything, the feud aftermath will harden his already deep focus on controlling tempo against teams that wall early and shade late. Expect fewer forced drives into the crowd and more quick-hit actions that get him catching on the move with built-in release valves. There's a meta lesson here about how superstars evolve under international rules. The FIBA lane is tighter. Help is earlier. Whistles are different. What reads as lack of passing is sometimes lack of time. The fix is advantage creation by structure, staggered entries, inverted screens that pull rim protectors 2 steps out, and trusting early hits to shooters even after a bad miss. Giannis knows this. Sengun exploits it. That future chess match is a part of a story we should be arguing about, not who won Instagram. Section 6. Where this leaves their brands, their teams, and their next collision. Zoom out. Both men protected their long-term positioning. Sengun just led his country to a final and solidified his star status as a modern hub big. Giannis reinforced that when the heat peaks, he chooses responsibility. For sponsors and federations, that's the exact profile you want. Excellence plus steadiness after a stumble. Internally, both locker rooms saw their leaders handle chaos and bring it back to basketball. That kind of equity is real. It buys patience in slumps and trust in timeouts. The practical stakes going forward are clear. If these teams meet again, nothing about the scheme calculus changes. Turkey will still try to make Giannis a half-beat late and cash the turnover tax. Greece will still try to place him on the move and dare helpers to commit one step too far. The quotes will be safer. The posts will be blander. But the play will be nastier in the good way. And that's the perfect end state. The loudest responses should be rotations and cuts, not captions. Let's stitch this together with the expectation map you came for. What happened and when? A tactical post-game line on September 12th turned into a spiky IG story. Giannis clapped back on a live stream after a bronze game win. And the internet spun it until families were targeted. Why did it escalate? Because nationalism, algorithmic incentives, and translation strips turned a scouting report into identity warfare. How did it end? With a joint apology and a clear boundary. Protect families, respect rivals, keep it on the hardwood. That's the arc. The crazy part is how fast it can happen now. 96 hours from stray words to security fears to a ceasefire. Tomorrow, the news cycle will move on. But the blueprint remains, and the next star matchup will be safer if the room learns this lesson. Here's my final take. Rivalries are the best part of sports when they live on the floor. They're the worst when they migrate to the family group chat. Sengun's basketball brain and Giannis's nuclear athleticism are both gifts to the game. But the gift that mattered this week was adult accountability. The apologies didn't erase the heat, they reclaimed it. Let the rematch be the loudest thing either of them says. And if you're here for the unfiltered stories that spill out of locker rooms when the cameras go off, the texts, the memos, the politics, jump into our locker room confidential playlist next. That's where the game behind the game really lives.